China's annual legislature session began in the first week of March, with President Xi Jinping seeking to restore public and economic confidence as the country reopens from strict COVID-19 measures. The aggressive zero-COVID approach became unpopular, leading to public protests in December, and as per analysts, the restrictions were largely responsible for the country's second-lowest GDP growth in over 4 decades. Officials have set a 5% growth target for 2023, and the legislature vowed to promote the policies of Xi and the ruling Communist Party. The Chinese government is a single-party socialist state governed by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. The highest authority in the country is the General Secretary of the CCP, who is currently held by Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is also the President of China and the Chairman of the Central Military Commission, making him the most powerful figure in Chinese politics. The Chinese government is divided into 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. The executive branch is headed by the Premier of the State Council, who is currently Li Keqiang. The legislative branch is the National People's Congress, NPC, which is China's top legislative body. The judicial branch is led by the Supreme People's Court, which is the highest court in China. The Politburo Standing Committee is the highest decision-making body of the CCP and the Chinese government. It currently consists of 7 members, including Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang. The Politburo is made up of around 25 members and is responsible for making important policy decisions. The Chinese government is also structured around various ministries and departments that oversee different areas of government. For example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for China's foreign relations, and the Ministry of Finance is responsible for managing China's finances. The Chinese government is expected to announce its GDP target and new premier during its annual parliamentary meeting, known as the 2 sessions. The meeting brings together delegates from across China to discuss and approve national priorities. This year's meeting will formalize government titles for the new premier, vice premiers, and heads of different ministries, which typically go to top leaders of the ruling Chinese Communist Party. President Xi Jinping is expected to gain an unprecedented 3rd term at the meeting, while Li Keqiang is expected to become the new premier. The meeting will also review a reform plan for the ruling party and state institutions, which includes changes to finance and tech, as well as increasing the party's presence in non-state-owned businesses, according to state media. It's true that the impact of the potential changes discussed at the parliamentary meeting on the economy in the short term is unclear. According to Bruce Pang, the chief economist and head of research for Greater China at JLL, the changes are more focused on governance than on economic policy. Pang noted that the major economic policies for the year were likely set at the end of 2022, and that different parts of the government have already sent signals about their plans in the first 2 months of this year. It remains to be seen how any new governance reforms or changes to the party's presence in non-state-owned businesses will affect the Chinese economy in the long term. The 2 sessions, which includes the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and the National People's Congress, is scheduled to begin on March 5th and 6th, respectively. During this annual gathering, the government is expected to release targets for GDP, inflation, employment, and the fiscal deficit. The country's new premier, vice premiers, and heads of different ministries are also expected to be appointed. The 2 sessions typically lasts for around 2 weeks, with this year's meeting expected to end on March 17th. While inflation is forecast to remain muted, around 3%, the country may slightly expand its fiscal deficit. Analysts say that China's attempt to pivot away from zero-COVID following widespread protests raises questions about citizen demands and government receptiveness. The protests were not the only determining factors, however, they contributed to the government's swift decision. The protests likely spurred the government to move faster on easing the zero-COVID policy. Tai-Su Zhang, a law professor at Yale University, posits that the protests could have acted as a political off-ramp for the government by lessening blame on the government if the country suffers a wave of COVID-related deaths. Economic factors seem to have also played a role in the decision. The government attempted to loosen some COVID-19 restrictions in mid-November, but it soon returned to strict control measures as cases spiked. This came along with pessimistic economic news, showing a slowing of economic growth. Thanks for watching the video.